So we are delighted to welcome two co-chairs. Do you have them here? Yeah. Okay, guiding this dynamic discussion, Ms. Doreen van der Waal, a youth engagement and partnerships professional at the World Health Organizations and Forever Youth from the Heart. And Dr. Iris Bloom, she sat on the panel for the last session, a physician and climate health expert specializing in sustainable healthcare and climate adaptation. Please welcome our co-chairs to the stage with a warm round of applause.
Good afternoon. Hi again, everyone. Welcome to the closing substance session of the Dr. Lee Memorial Forum. You already know me, but this session we want to make it super engaging. So I hope you're ready and have some energy to contribute, because we also want to hear from you.
Thank you, Iris. It's very nice to be here together with her. We work together at WHO, and we've been working together on youth engagement. And my name is Doreen van der Waal. I have worked with Dr. Lee since 1994, when I was 29 years old. And I am actually, she's the young part of the chairing, and I am the older part of the chairing. And this is also the purpose a little bit of the session, is bringing generations together.
20 years ago, Dr. Lee called for Health for All, a vision built on equity, courage, collective responsibility. Today's emerging leaders inherit that call at a moment of overlapping crises, a climate conflict, inequity, eroded trust. 20 years from now, in 2046, they will be the ones answering for it.
So before we introduce our speakers, we're going to do this slightly different, as this was actually designed by the young people, this session. It's going to be a little bit unconventional. So Iris is going to actually start by reading a letter, and to imagine that you would be 20 years from now, in 2046, and we're sitting in this room right now. Over to you.
Dear colleagues of 2026, it's strange to write to you knowing how much has changed and how much hasn't. When you gathered in Geneva 20 years ago, you didn't yet know which crises would compound and which would surprise you. You didn't know that the climate emergencies of the late 2020s would force us to redefine what an emergency even means. You didn't know that health for all would have to be argued for again and again in rooms where the air conditioning worked better than the trust. But here is what I want you to know. The decisions you make this year about who gets a seat, who gets a contract, who gets named in the next plan, those decisions are visible from here. Not all of them aged well. Some of them are why we are still doing repair work in 2046. So please be braver than you have to be. Trust earlier than feels comfortable. And when you find a young person doing serious work, don't make them ask for the microphone 3 times before you hand it over. We needed you, we still need you. With love and impatience, a colleague writing from 2046. So that letter, of course, is an imagined one, but the 4 people we are about to hear from are not imagined. They are members of the WHO Youth Council, and they are already are doing the work that the letter is asking for.
So let me start by introducing the 4 panel members to come forward. Katja Cic, please. Soyim, who is a young professional officer working in our team at WHO. Dr. Pablo Estrella Porter. Welcome. And then Dr. Simeng Lee. Dr. Lee, coming forward. Over to you.
Great. A quick word on how the next 40 minutes or so will run. So this is not a panel. We structured it as 4 moves. So move 1 happened with the letter. Move 2, we will hear from our speakers on a sharp prompt in a very short time. Under 3 minutes, no slides, no full CVs, just their conviction. And in move 3, which is where you come in, we'll flip the room. You'll turn to your neighbor from a different generation, and we'll take some reactions from you. And then move 4, we'll close with a one-line commitment of what you will do differently after today. So start thinking about that as you listen to them. And then we'll hand back to Kofi.
Katja, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So a very difficult prompt also demands a loaded response. So let me start with a bit of a hot take. We need to move beyond the heroic and often even savior language that we often use in this field when it comes to courage. I imagine many of you throughout this week have heard the sentence, "Youth are the future." Well, quite a few of us are alive today and a part of policies and systems that affect us. And the sentiment, "youth are the future," is actually double trouble. Because first of all, it's shifting the burden of solutions onto a new generation, which is a huge weight for us to shoulder. But it also avoids the accountability from generations that are currently holding positions of power. So back to courage. Courage for young people is not just speaking at conferences or advocating online. Courage is continuing to believe they belong in global health, even if the system often tells them otherwise. Because right now, entering this field is actually more difficult rather than easier. Young professionals are navigating shrinking WHO and donor financing, frozen internships, lack of short-term consultancies, which were for decades the entryway for young people into global health work. There's little stability, and the networking spaces often reward proximity, if you live in Geneva, New York, Copenhagen, and so on, privilege, or even existing connections more than talent or commitment. And often, today's global health institutions are asking young professionals to be passionate as a substitute for paying them fairly. And yet, despite that, young people are showing up. Courage, to me, looks like a student from a low-income background applying for opportunities they were never socially connected to access. It looks like someone from a tiny country, like mine, fighting off the imposter syndrome to feel like they belong or deserve a voice. It looks like an early career professional staying in public health despite financial insecurity and activist burnout. It looks like young people insisting that their lived experience is expertise, not just something to be consulted symbolically on after decisions are already made. But I also think we need to be honest, and we cannot keep celebrating resilience while normalizing exclusion. A field that is dedicated to equity cannot rely on unpaid labor or elite gatekeeping as the price of entry. If global health only becomes accessible to those who can afford this instability, then we risk losing exactly the perspectives that we urgently need. So courage today is also institutional courage. It's the courage for organizations like WHO, like Kofi, and other partners to rethink who gets opportunities, who gets paid, who gets visibility, and it means who gets to shape agendas. It means investing in pathways that are transparent, inclusive, and financially viable for young people from all backgrounds. And importantly, young people are not asking for charity. They're asking for intergenerational fairness, mentorship, and the ability to contribute sustainably to a field they deeply care about. Basically, they're asking to be treated exactly like all of you. And I believe the future credibility of global health depends on this. Because if we want systems that are equitable, representative, and trusted, then the pathway into those systems needs to reflect those same values. So when I think about courage, I think about young people who continue choosing service, solidarity, and public health, even in uncertain conditions. And I think about whether institutions are willing to meet that courage with structural change. And while I personally never had the chance to meet Dr. Jong-wook, from stories told today and yesterday, I believe he had that courage. Hopefully, so do all of you.
Thank you, Katja. I think that is very well put. And it also gives a bit of an, how can I say, responsibility to the generation the older generation from Katja, that we can actually make that difference for them. And we have to, yes, passion is important, and we always say, it's so great, young people here, we need youth engagement. But we need to actually, action needs to follow to recognize it and to also to give them that recognition that they deserve. And it makes me think back of what Ginny said when she was 25 years old and she was given a pretty heavy mandate with a big budget to handle. Indeed, this is exactly what Dr. Lee did with young people. I have experienced it, and many years later now I have learned that yes, sometimes it's hard. You have to force your path. You have to learn to navigate the different institutions, but we shouldn't make it more difficult for the young generation. We should really empower them and make it easy for them to be part of, to be with us as equal partners. Over to the next panelist. So-Yim.
Thank you very much, Doreen and Iris, and also a huge thank you to the Kofi Foundation for the opportunity to be part of this conversation. This topic really hit close to home for me as someone who's working at the WHO as a junior professional officer, also of course known as JPO, a program that really reflects a commitment by government, in my case by the government of the Republic of Korea, to really invest in young professionals and really entrust us with the responsibility to engage and contribute meaningfully within the UN agencies. And over the years, I did witness really a growing effort and interest across a lot of global health institutions to engage youth and value youth voices, which was very encouraging. But at the same time, I had this recurring thought in the back of my mind as to, but what's next? And what does it actually take for us to be trusted, not as a contributor, but also as a future leader? And at WHO, I work specifically on parliamentary engagement. And I would say one of the most important part of my work is to make sure that the commitments that are being made at the global level, like the ones that were being made throughout the week at the Assembly, that these commitments get translated and implemented into actual concrete action, whether it be through legislations, policies, or budgets. And one meaningful experience for me personally was to launch the World Health Assembly Global Parliamentary Forum, which was inaugurated last year and is now established as an annual and dedicated platform for parliamentarians to engage directly within the World Health Assembly, which really didn't exist before. And that was personally very rewarding moment for me to, as a junior professional, contribute to what I believed was a milestone within global health governance, and really being able to strengthen the political accountability and parliamentary engagement in global health decision-making processes. And I believe the same principles really could be applied when it comes to youth engagement, is by really turning into that commitment into concrete actions and outcomes, because that's where you can see the real impact. And the supporting young professionals really shouldn't be limited to one-off initiatives or short-term opportunities. If you're actually serious about ensuring to build a sustainable global health leadership, which is the theme of this overarching session, then we really need to make sure that sustained and international investment should be contributed for young professionals so that they can be able to contribute substantively and also develop their expertise and grow into their leadership role over time. And just before closing, when I was reflecting on Dr. Lee's legacy, what really stood out to me was not only his leadership with humility, but also his undeterred courage to keep evolving, not only for himself, but also for the organization. So I hope that we could honor his legacy by following that footstep and doing the same for the younger generations. Thank you.
Maybe something just to highlight to what you say. I think very often we think as, I think actually as older people, older generation working at WHO, empowering and mentoring young people is actually not part of your job description. This is actually part of everyone's life job description. And this is something that we should naturally start doing. It's not something you want to be paid for or recognized for. It is actually working with young people. And I have the privilege to work with the Youth Council and with young people. And it's not something that you think it's an additional thing. It is so empowering and it's so enriching and it gives me so much gratitude to see these young people standing up and with passion and sometimes not remunerated, sometimes being here for very long hours, doing things after their work. And I really would like to encourage everyone here that we have those that have the possibility to really mentor young people, help them navigate the difficult working spaces that we actually are working in. WHO is not an easy workspace, but it's our kind of life responsibility to help these young people navigate these spaces, and it's really a privilege to do so.
Thanks, and with that, over to Pablo.
Thank you first for giving us this space, and especially because it was also a possibility for co-creating this session. As a junior doctor myself, youth is not waiting to become part of the health systems. In many countries and settings, students and early career professionals are already helping hold those systems together, often while facing low wages, unsafe and inadequate working conditions, burnout, fragmenting training, and even limited protection. The question is whether institutions will give us real leadership pathways before 2046, or only responsibility without real decision-making. By 2046, many of today's students and early career professionals will be leading hospitals, clinics, universities, ministries, and many other senior positions. I'm sure in 20 years, when our generations reach these positions, we will continue advocating for youth engagement and intergenerational leadership. But by then, probably it's already too late. The foundations of that leadership is being built right now. Too often, young people are asked to volunteer. Early career professionals are asked to cover gaps of the system, are expected to adapt to overstretched systems, often without enough protection, mentorship, or voice. This is not only a workforce issue, it is a leadership issue, and it's also an ethical issue. We see the consequences of inequity at the bedside of patients, in communities, and in training environments. We will see what happens when health workers migrate, because we've seen it ourselves, that they cannot build safe or defined careers at home. We see burnout normalized as commitment. We see digital tools introduced without enough attention to trust, ethics, or access. And we see prevention discussed as a priority, but often underfunded compared with crisis response. The real question is whether institutions are ready to trust us, the youth. Preparing students and early career health professionals to be ethical, trusted leaders means more than inviting us to youth panels. It means including youth in decisions about us. It means creating protected spaces where we can speak honestly without fear of punishment. It means teaching leadership not as hierarchy, but as a responsibility. Responsibility to patients, responsibility to communities, to colleagues, and to the population. It also means that ethical leadership starts early. If we train people in a system where exhaustion is normal, where silence is rewarded, and where young professionals are treated as replaceable resources, we should not be surprised when trust in health system declines. But if we train them in systems that value dignity, accountability, collaboration, and courage, then we're not only filling today's workforce gaps, we're building tomorrow's health leadership. So my last message, also to honor Dr. Lee's memorial, is do not call youth, students or early career health professionals, the future, while excluding them from the decisions that shape the future. So the action actually happens today, and it's happening at the moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pablo. I think a very clear call to action. The health workforce is at the core of, actually, I think, everything that we do here. And I think you very clearly outlined the barriers that young people are facing. So thank you for doing that. And also young professionals specifically are facing in these spaces. And the mindset issue is one that I think is at the beginning of this. If we shift the mindset, and we've seen that shift with many people in WHO, slowly but surely coming because of these efforts that the young people are doing in these spaces, because they don't give up, they keep having the conversations, even if they're shut down. Slowly but surely, step by step, the mindset shifts. And once one mindset shifts, others follow, right? So we all have a responsibility towards that. And from what I hear, Dr. Lee did have that correct mindset, so that's great. I'm happy now to pass on to our final speaker on this move too, and that is Simeng, who will actually speak to us about the following sentence. The current model of youth engagement ensures broad inclusion of young voices across regions and social groups.
Thank you, Iris, for giving me the floor. I think, just to also put that out there, I was asked to give a provocative statement on this. I currently do not think that the model of youth engagement that we have in 2026 ensures broad inclusion of youth voices across different spaces. Yes, we have visibility of youth in many spaces, this being one of them, for which we are very grateful. But there is a long way to go to actually go to meaningful inclusion of those youth. And young people are present, but oftentimes it also still are, they are the same youth every single time. It is people from who have the capacity to build networks, to engage, that have relevant backgrounds, that speak the language, that know the people that come to these spaces. I also recognize that I am one of them. I'm a medical doctor from the Netherlands. I am engaged in the Youth Council, have been able to engage in that space for the past 8 years. Have had the privilege to study in a high-income country, learned multiple languages at an early age, which also gives me the opportunity to engage here. And I'm very happy to the organizers of this panel, and also to the WHO Youth Council for providing that space. But also, I think it's important to underline that there's many other young people and students here around the world that do not have these capacities or opportunities given to them, but that does not mean that their opinions are no less valuable than mine. And in that sense, also when we talk about broad inclusion across groups, regions, sectors, youth inclusion is often seen as something that we have to do, but we don't actually know how to. When youth are very diverse, we are different people, we are individuals, we're not just one homogeneous group. Recently I read in a very renowned medical journal about how to do youth engagement, how to do engagement in a panel. And it really challenged our view on how we set up panels like these in big global health conferences, where we often see that we just have to tick a box. So we bring people in from different backgrounds from academia, and at some point someone says, oh, these are all people from the global north that work in academia, what can we do? Let's bring in a young person, a woman, someone from the global south. And oftentimes it is the same one person that ticks all those boxes. And I really do not think that that is the way that we should go forward on this, because youth inclusion is broader than just someone being brought on stage to tick the box. And then moving on to the local level, I want to highlight the barriers that young people face. The people that can engage in like decision-making spaces, panels, conversations are once again young people that have connections, resources, education, speak the right languages. It's not the students or young professionals that are working, taking care of family members that do not have for example, for refugees do not have the right to stay in a certain country, are not in school, for example. Where are those young people? Do we actually have their voice heard when they might need it most, more than the people that can actually make their way into those spaces? And in that sense, this is also a call for both having youth engagement at a global level, but also ensuring that we have youth engagement on a local level, where closest to the people, closest to the community, closest to the needs of people. That's where you can actually find young people that represent what we need, and also the people that they work with, rather than in global spaces like these. So I think my question or challenge to everyone today is, what do we want to do? What does youth engagement mean to us? Is it actually something that we just want to look upon and tick a box, or do we actually want youth engagement that affects people in local communities? If that's the last thing is what we want, which I hope that we can agree on, I think we need to move on from only including highly educated young people that have rich connections, that have an academic background, to be the voice of youth, so to say. And we need to start investing in actually creating these mechanisms in local areas where change can be made faster, rather than in global institutions, global arenas, where we might not hear people that needs to be heard most. Thank you.
I think you raised a really good point. I think, yes, we are very often, especially whether we are at WHO, the UN, or spaces like this, very often most of us come from very privileged backgrounds. And so when we talk about inclusion, it's true, we do pretty well on gender. I think we do at least at WHO, I think we do a good job on geographical representation. Youth is really getting there, and the youth is really going for it. But indeed, is what you say, what about low socioeconomic status? There is a huge potential in countries, in universities, where people or young people would never get the chance to be invited to spaces like this. And yet they could have brilliant ideas. And they have actually very important lived experiences that some of us might not have had. And they're not necessarily at the table with their stories, with their challenges and their life challenges that they face every day. So making sure that we include young people from low socioeconomic status as well. And I believe fellowship programs, like Coffee has an important fellowship program in Dr. Lee's name. Fellowship programs would be an incredible way to bring fellows from not only high-income countries, but making sure we bring fellows in from low and middle-income countries, but from local universities. So thank you very much for the statement. I think it was a very powerful one. Thank you.
Thanks very much. If I can add one challenge to that, is that I would ask us all to consider the role of privilege that privilege has played in who we're listening to, but also the role that privilege has played in why we are in this room. Thanks very much. We will now move to number 3 of this session, and we're going to need you to do something. So I'm going to count down, and after I've counted down, what I would like you to do is find someone in the room from a different generation. I'm also going to invite the panel to participate and find someone. And I will ask each of the pair to speak for 90 seconds on this prompt. What is one thing your generation is getting right that mine should learn from? So you'll have 90 seconds. After that, I'll say time's up, and then you switch, and the other person will speak for 90 seconds, and that's it. And towards the very end, we might hear from some of you. So 3, 2, 1, let's go. All right. No. Yeah. All right. Time's up. If I could have everybody's attention, kindly, and if you could kindly take your seats, because our time is up, and I would like to ask the panelists to come back with us on the stage. If the panelists would want to come back here and everybody else takes a seat. And, okay. Now, I would like to hear 3 voices from the room. So, is there anyone here? I'm walking around in the middle in case you don't see me. Sorry, I'm continuing. Is there anyone who would like to raise something they've learned from the conversation? Anyone? Yeah. Yeah. Learned from the person you were talking to. Very quick.
All right. Very quickly, the youth were saying, youth is a nice label, isn't it? Is saying that that they need to also be humble in not thinking that they know more than they actually do. That was just one specific spit.
Great. Anyone else? Yeah, Beth?
So we were talking about the fact that we think kind of young people are very kind of open with their kind of ideas, and the fact that if something isn't kind of the way we agree it, we're happy to kind of say that. And then we also discussed about the importance of also that intergenerational relationship and also having kind of respect and listening to generations that have kind of been there before us and kind of learning together, and also the importance of mentorship and how that works both ways between a mentor and a mentee.
Just to add, we also discussed the importance of middle ground, meeting each other. Thank you. This is a great panel.
Nice. I see one more hand over here, so I'm running across the room.
Hi, I also learned that so with the older generation, she mentioned that in the past they had very limited resources, and so when parents had opportunity, the first thing they would do is to invest in education for their children. And so my generation should also learn that, I mean, luxury is good, but investment is key. Yeah.
Thanks so much. Is there anyone else on the other side of the room? Okay, I see two more hands, so one, two, three, very quick, each of you.
I learned that the older generation was looking backwards most of the times, and this generation is looking forward, and that would make a change.
Very nice. Okay, running this way. Where were my two people? Yeah, over there. Great.
So it was Millennial and Gen Z, and my notion was, I think millennials started this push in the workplace, particularly in the West, for more diversity. And I think Gen Z have taken it further. So this was our exchange here.
Thanks. Was it yes? Final intervention from the floor.
It's same to the point that the older generation or the previous generation does invest in our education, and on the other hand, from the youth as well. If you look around the room, we're still here, and we always stay, and we always show up. I think that's one area that we should appreciate.
Thank you so much. I nicely got back to the stage. Is there anyone on the panel that would like to share a quick thought? Anything?
So we discussed that the younger generation is perhaps better at setting boundaries for work-life balance, but the older generation was a part of the system building, so they know all the entryways, all the shortcuts, or the pathways, so they're better at navigating the current systems.
Perfect. Thanks so much. We're going to move to move number 4, our final move of this session. If the older generation cannot figure it out, please move to your partner that you just spoke to for help, and they can help you. We are going to ask you to submit one thing you will do differently after today. So you can scan this QR code, and then you can fill out your one sentence of the one thing you will do differently after today. Perfect. So take a moment to scan and think. If you cannot figure it out, go back to your other generation. They can help. We're going to start to see some results. Dream bigger, think loud, sleep more. Nice. Spend more time with family. Eh? Be proactive. Say something, not only thinking. Voicing out my views. Nice, those align. Giving more validation to ideas of my children. I like that one. Do. Venture outside the beaten path and continue to push for diversity if the mission is global. Retire. Nice. Create alliances. and work together across differences. That's very nice. Great. I think we will leave this on so you can still submit or also take a look at what's coming in. I will now pass over to my colleague for some final words to close off this session, but I would also like to highlight that I think with Doreen, I am experiencing one of the best intergenerational partnerships. As you've heard from her, she is an incredible supporter of youth engagement, and she spoke to how to walk the talk and for this to be central to work. And if there's one embodiment of what she's actually been telling you, it would be her. So it's such a pleasure to be co-facilitating this session with her today and also to work with her every day. So thank you so much, Doreen. I'm looking forward to hearing from you on the final reflection.
Well, I guess there's something that stuck with me from working with Dr. Lee for a long time, because he was indeed that person that there was no young, middle age, or older people. He empowered everyone. And today, social connection is actually a big word, and we're losing social connection. Social connection is a big issue today. And the purpose of the session today was a little bit to socially connect with each other and to make that effort. And I actually want to give two anecdotes that actually, when I think of Dr. Lee's, two things that he did, and I think it gives a really good picture of who he was. He was a very visionary man. He was always empowering people, no matter what age. And he always wanted to drive change, but doing it in a concrete, no-nonsense way. That's sometimes a challenge at the UN, because there's a lot of blockages and there is a lot of bureaucracy. And I think that is what I learned from him. And also that he allowed people to make mistakes. And I very, very remember when I was very young, he entrusted me with a project, and I made a mistake, and I had no idea how to justify myself, I felt so bad. So I went to Dr. Lee's office and I said, I'm so sorry. I started to justify why this happened. And he told me, Doreen, I don't want to hear your justification. You know what you did wrong. And you will do better next time. And it's fine to make mistakes. It's fine to make mistakes. And I trust next time you'll do the right thing. And then there's another thing Dr. Lee always did. At the end of the day, he would always take rounds across the building. And he would walk in at random in people's offices. He would sit down and he would talk to people. And he would ask people, how are you feeling? What are the issues? Because as a Director General, you're often isolated. People protect you from what's really happening down, where you don't necessarily get to hear what is happening. And he was always interested to know what was happening at any level of the organization, with anyone. And this is something that has stayed with me as such a powerful thing. It's like he always wanted to hear firsthand, how are people doing and what are people feeling? Not just the work, not just what WHO had to perform. It is how are the people feeling in the organization that are actually the success of the organization. So I just want to leave words of thanks to Dr. Lee of being an extremely humble, inspiring, and a man that is led by he was a great example. So thank you very much for all of you being here today and listening to my great colleagues, and I hope some of the messages you really take away into your daily life and into your work. Thank you very much.